Hello, students. Today we are going to learn the prose I Believe That Books Will Never Disappear by Jorge Luis Borges. This lesson is in the form of an interview between Borges, a famous Argentinian writer, and his friend Roberto Alifano. Let me explain this to you as if we are listening to this conversation. When the interview begins, Alifano asks Borges about his first reading experience. Borges smiles and replies that his first great reading was Grimm's Fairy Tales in English. He also explains that he was educated in his father's library, which was full of books on many subjects. That library, according to him, was his true school. Then Alifano asks him about his mother. At this point, Borges becomes emotional. He says that his mother was an extraordinary woman, very intelligent and gracious, but he sadly admits that he had not been able to understand her fully or return her affection. With a sense of guilt, he adds that this is the case with most children. We take our mothers for granted and only realize their true value when they are no longer with us. Next, Alifano asks about his blindness. Borges replies honestly. He says that at first, blindness was very difficult for him. He felt as though he had entered a completely unknown world, and many times he faced humiliation and embarrassment. But later he accepted it with courage. He says blindness is not a misfortune, it is a resource. He explains that all humiliations and misfortunes are given to us as raw materials, and it is up to us to shape them into art. That is why, even though he was blind, he continued to buy books and fill his library, almost pretending that he was not blind. Then the interviewer asks him what books mean to him. Borges replies that every book has a special value. Even if a book is full of errors, it still contains something sacred, something mortal, something magical. Reading books, according to him, always brings happiness. After that, Alifano asks Borges about poetry. Borges replies that poetry is something intimate and essential, but also mysterious. It is not just words on a page, it is an aesthetic act. He explains that poetry happens in two moments, when the poet writes and when the reader reads. But if the reader does not feel it, then the poet has failed. To explain further, Borges gives the example of a line by Emily Dickinson. This quiet dust was gentlemen and ladies. He points out that if she had written men and women, it would have sounded very ordinary. But the words gentlemen and ladies create a magical and poetic effect. Then Alifano asks about metaphors. Borges explains that metaphors are an essential part of literature. They have existed from the beginning of time. He says that most metaphors can be reduced to a few main ones like time and river, life and dreams, death and sleep, stars and eyes, flowers and woman. He feels that poets must discover and use these metaphors to make literature beautiful and meaningful. Finally, Alifano asks him if books will ever disappear, especially with the rise of modern technology. Borges answers with great confidence no, books will never disappear. He reasons that every human invention is only an extension of the human body. For example, the telephone is the extension of our voice, the telescope and microscope are extension of our eyes, and the sword and plow are extension of our arms, but the book is unique. It is the extension of our imagination and memory, and because imagination and memory are abstract and cannot be replaced by machines, books are irreplaceable. You cannot replace books at any cost. To conclude, Borges adds that literature itself is a dream, a controlled dream. Books are the memory of all centuries. If books were to disappear, history would disappear, and eventually man himself would disappear. So, students, through this interview, Borges teaches us that books are eternal treasures. They are more than paper and ink. They are the carriers of human memory, imagination, and culture. That is why he firmly says, I believe that books will never disappear. If you have liked the explanation, don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel and share it with your friends. Thank you for watching.